Hot Water History, episode 127. Just you and me, Richard. What's going on?
Getting in all this hot water, and I know you have a story that I can't wait to hear about with an Uber rider and drive.
I don't mean to hype this up too much. This is the craziest story I've ever heard from a stranger.
Ooh.
I still feel like I was in a dream.
Ha.
I'm not going to be able to tell it as well as the experience was. And I'm not even going to, and we'll save this for a little later. I'm not even going to try to be a good storyteller with this story. It's going to be very scattered
Okay.
because it feels like we're calling a dream.
Wow.
I've been moved in the last 48 hours.
That's wild. I don't know if I told you this, but about a month and a half ago, I had a vivid dream that Murray Rothbard was in, and
Okay.
it was so vivid that I woke up in the middle of the night, and I never do this, but I woke up in the middle of the night. And you know how when you wake up after a dream, immediately after a dream, and you have a very peaceful, it's the opposite emotion of a nightmare,
Yes.
whereas you're thrown and you're disoriented. This was very calming, reassuring, and peaceful. The sentiments that I felt or the emotions that I felt as upon waking up. So then what I did was I took my phone and I just self-recorded about what the different particulars of the dream were about, and then I just went back to sleep. So I'm going to produce a blog article about that dream, and maybe some psychoanalysts can interpret it for me. But I actually have a sense of what it's about, but if I'm wrong, then I can be corrected, of course.
Yeah.
But when Murray Rothbard appears in your dream, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Viewership of the pod going
Oh,
up,
that's excellent.
going up. A lot of new listeners. I think that ever since you were on Dellingpole, we've become almost like an American news source for the people of England that
For
know
the
that
disaffected in
they're
England.
they're just being fed lies about the American news.
Oh, okay. I like that.
I think there's something going on there that the patriots that are still in England.
Yeah. Do I have to do a twisted history of the British Isles soon?
That'd be fun. But let's talk about the real hot water,
Mm.
the Matrix. There's been a Matrix attack on the hot water history site. What's going on?
Yeah, this I finally got to the stage where Google's actively censoring blog entries on our website, labeling them as dangerous. I
So you
don't
made
know.
it. You made it.
I finally made it. I'm finally over it, right? I'm hovering over it. And the topic, incidentally, is an evaluation of democracy. And since it's been deemed so dangerous, we can't go on without doing a pod episode on it, since the whole premise of the podcast in conjunction with the website is to get our hands clean by putting them in some hot water, as Chesterton would say, right? So let's go through that process. Cleansing and cathartic.
You want me to pull it up?
Yeah, please.
Able to get through the deep.
You got through the censor,
Can't
yeah.
spread misinformation here. Mises on the masses, market versus political democracy.
Now, to be sure, in the past, I've written a number of blog articles that would be deemed as highly controversial, rabbit hole-esque, but this is the one that gets censored and has the perilous mark of dangerous, as you can see in the upper corner in the URL. Now, note that any other browser, whether it's Safari or Brave or anything like that, does not label it dangerous. Just Alphabet, the parent company of Google. So
How do you want to handle this? You want to read it or you want to pick some segments that
I thought you want to just read it and then
I
I
want
could
you to
use
read it.
it.
I want you to read it.
All right.
And
And then maybe I could elicit from you some commentary or
yes,
questions or
yes,
thoughts.
yes.
Questions too, if you need clarification.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be talking a lot later with this story.
All right. So I'll trust your scrolling skills as we move through the piece. There sure are a lot of people from various diverse backgrounds and intelligence levels weighing in on the god of democracy. From actor podcaster Russell Brand to president of the Western Hemisphere's greatest recent success story, El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, people are feeling democratic on democracy. On the criminally unintelligent side, one finds Lindsey Graham, who doesn't care much for American democracy but sims hardcore for the non existent democracies in Ukraine and Israel, and Kamala Harris, replete with her famous mastery of political science and philosophy. Bukele went so far as to say to Tucker Carlson that democracy works. It's indisputable. The United States worked. Now, as I listened to the oddly capable and refined Bukele speak about the functionality of American democracy, I could already hear the attendant cackles, largely from the right this time, not Kamala, that, of course, the United States is not a democracy, but a constitutional republic. Imagine that retort uttered with all the bestial blathering of those who project themselves as being superior to Joe Sixpack because they recall watching Schoolhouse Rocks in the fourth grade and maintain that now especially screeching tone and accent of midwittery. You get the effect as though you were in a 3D theater and the best of sound systems. These are the same people who, after the Trump conviction, could not wait to trot out and supplicate themselves before any MSNBC host in order to bleat, in America, no one, not even a former president, is above the law. Dear God.
Okay, so I was thinking about the crucifix
Mm.
and this saying, how the crucifix before Christ was such a symbol of power toward with the Roman Empire that it was
It's a symbol of humiliation.
right. It was very much the murder device
Mm-hmm.
of the Roman Empire.
Mm.
And I can totally imagine someone saying on the day of the crucifixion, no one is above the law.
Sure, sure. Yeah, the
That sentiment is very I bet that sentiment's over 2,000 years old.
yes,
That, hey, maybe he was a good guy, maybe he did all of these certain types of perhaps miracles if they would admit to that, but no one is above the law.
yes, and we know from the gospel accounts that the Pharisees were rousing the people and the rabble, especially as Pilate was questioning Jesus. And they simply said that, as Pilate, in a almost jesting and provocative way, so what should I do with your king here? And he keeps prodding Jesus as to say, are you the king of the Jews? But the crowd, the Pharisees get the crowd all riled up and they say, we have no king but Caesar. That's the same sentiment as no one's above the law. Yeah. Even though, of course, the Pharisees themselves detested this Roman reign over them, they were going to use it as a very blunt instrument to wipe out a challenge to their authority, their power, their prestige, and their positions. Of course, what Bukele offers is not a defense of democracy as an unassailable system by which a simple majority of the uninformed or the uninvested get to exercise coercive power over all. Instead, Bukele's democracy works as a system by which a country unites to correct course once enough individuals within it recognize that being ruled over by satanic drug cartels and their political whores brings with it relentless ruination. The correction is a political mandate for Bukele and Bitcoin. Into the penitentiaries go Beelzebub's warlords, who Bill Clinton repatriated from Los Angeles to San Salvador in the late 1990s. And wow, crime plummets. Yes, El Salvador went from the national murder capital of the world to the safest country in the Occident. That's no accident. Neither is the country's espousal of Bitcoin as optional legal tender. Already dollarized, Salvadorans have staved off the negative impacts of Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen's dollar crushing machine in Washington and invited speculation and development to their beautiful land. Seigniorage and American inflationism be damned. El Salvador has none of the banking titans who benefit so early and easily from the dollar printing press. It does not have the weapons manufacturers plying their lethal trade, assembling cluster bombs to send to Kiev and Tel Aviv, destined to fall on Russia and Gazan children. Salvadorans get none of the welfare nor social safety nets, whose immense expense remains the primary cause of all that inflation. Whereas the dollar is sweating, Bitcoin is gaining as an alternative. Gold too. And unlike the United States, the El Salvadoran governments have no precedent, even the most devilish ones of the past, in enacting laws to seize gold. Your FDR fan will tell you that not all of the gold was seized by the feds during the Depression. You were allowed to keep your wedding bands. Quelle gentillesse, which in French translates to what kindness. Bukele's democracy works until it doesn't. Payne, Franklin, Tyler, and Cleveland's democracy worked until it didn't. And boy, when it stops working, look out. It appears that just a small spoonful of decadence makes democracy go down. Decadence is endemic to democracy.
That's such a good point. That's the part that stood out. Decadence is an endemic to democracy.
What do you want to expand on what you think is so key about that?
It's the Peter Schiff saying that people don't vote for freedom, they vote for free stuff. And that's not even, that's a smaller form of decadence, probably a lower level of decadence, but even higher levels, people vote for more, perhaps free stuff is the wrong way to word that, but protectionist policies for a business, whatever can keep barriers from competition high so new competitors can't come in. That's a very higher level of decadence than welfare. But with democracy, both exist.
Sure. And the status of human nature as being fallen and prone to concupiscent sin reminds us that, as such, when you just simply gather a majority of them together, it's not just the chance, but the likelihood that over time, vices will, in a sense, coalesce among a mob. And so that's why the most enlightened among in these thinkers of the Enlightenment, including the American framers and founders, understood quite well that democracy immediately, if it's not regulated, controlled, and leashed in a sense, and regulated by some type of polity and meritocracy among the elites, well then, and what we mean by elites here are not our current elites, but actually people who are hegemons and leaders because they've merited such positions. They're capable of leadership roles in a social hierarchy. Well, if they relinquish that or their authority, or more so, they don't do a good job in quelling the mobocracy, well, then it just leads to the type of degrading decadence that Rome saw and all previously great civilizations, which at least contained an element of self-government, and particularly an element of democracy within them. All that, this is the reason why they fell apart. And yes, they were prone to the type of envy and jealousy of the masses who see and by the way, misidentify forces and institutions that are keeping them down. So I could pick it up again. To be sure, political democracy is the god that failed. And anyone who disagrees with Hans-Hermann Hoppe on this is just not that bright. On the other hand, whether it is San Salvador, Buenos Aires, Tbilisi, or your local downtown, Market democracy rolls on. It is a wild thing that years before I read Ludwig von Mises at all, much less studied his work with the attention to which I am justly, albeit belatedly, paying to it now, I deduced a large number of these truths on my own. Better, I figured out these economic dynamics with the grace of the Holy Spirit, my guardian angel, and my patron saints. You doubt this, but you should not. After all, I pleaded with God before every class I taught for knowledge and wisdom. I prayed that I might be his humble servant in distilling and explicating this to my students, his precious children. My prayers were answered, especially when I hit on topics like money mechanics, malinvestment, fractional reserve banking, free trade, and social cooperation. Validation represents just one of the multitude of fruits now enjoyed as I read Human Action from cover to cover. The absolute perspicacious brilliance of the work is the pineapple or Moldovan strawberry, my friend James Dellingpold says they are the best.
How far are you on human action? Are you done yet?
No, I'm about 80% through. So working my way. Some real gems toward the latter quarter to a third. So really great stuff there. So whereas politicians, and we're going to get a dose of a healthy spoonful of human action in a moment. But whereas politicians and democracies only calculate in expressions of units of power claimed through law and vote, Mises rightly asserted that, and quote, the market economy is real because it can calculate. Human Action, page 260. Entrepreneurs and consumers are forever calculating and forecasting while acting in subjective freedom to determine just how to satisfy what Mises refers to as this innate need to quell our natural and inevitable state of uneasiness. While political democracy goads people stuck in the morass of propaganda, ignorance, and inertia to vote for their overseers, each economic decision in the market is an instructive signal of what the economic agent actually values. A farmer wishing then calculating that a loan, even with a high interest rate, is preferable to seeing his fields dry up and lay fallow, is an economic actor. The farmer's neighbor calculates poorly. He might blindly trust his almanac or swear off looking for any credit from those, in quote, damn bankers. His attribution of bankers' eternal and general destination might be spot on, but not his calculation. On the other side of the coin, what of the banker who determines and examines the prospects of farmer number one seeking the loan, understands his situation and prospects, and extends the loan, maybe even at a few bips under the going interest rate? Well, banker one is rewarded for his work, his assessment, when farmer one pays back the principal with interest. Banker two carries with him all of the snobbery of a yuppie. He doesn't work with bumpkins, only with billionaire tech startups. The twos are the twos for a number of reasons, and the market ensures their status. Perhaps they will learn from their errors, perhaps not. Either way, the market will account for them. From Mises, end quote, a democratic constitution is a scheme to assign to the citizens in the conduct of government the same supremacy the market economy gives to them in their capacity as consumers. Human Action 271. And despite their unveiled ignorance, our state captors sense the inherent inferiority of their system to the market. This sense goes far into explaining why so many of them have such antipathy towards the market. Slavery comes not from market democracy, but from submission to a political class drunk on illusions of the superiority of political democracy. The current oligarchs, with their democratic masks, wish to determine where and how you work, how much you, in quote, owe to them, what you should produce, what you should consume, what should be on your vaccine schedule, what should be, ironically, your cow's vaccine schedule. Holy cow, there's nothing left for you to truly elect. And quote, modern capitalism is essentially mass production for the needs of the masses. Human Action 587. And that's what they hate the most about it. So that's the end of the piece.
Dangerous indeed.
Yes, dangerous indeed, because the talking heads on nearly every clearly owned American Pravda outlet of the government and state and of the regime. And then those that are controlled opposition and owned opposition, like the Fox News is to a degree, I would argue the Newsmaxes of the world and your standard kind of conservative outlets, they blather on and they constantly repeat the pious and holy refrain in their minds that, of course, democracy is this sacred institution that must be guarded at all costs, which, by the way, was the same mantra used in justifying World War II. And before that, some elements within World War I, how liberal democracy had to be preserved at the cost of tens of millions of lives. And so to see this all crumbling before them, and it's obvious to anyone with eyes to see and ears to hear that none of this is working, liberal democracy is an immense failure. Well, I suppose that it is. Democracy is their God. And to see your God just crumble like an old statue of um, well, I guess you would call idol. Yes, their idol is being slowly just pummeled. Well, that throws them into a frenzy, and they don't like that. Especially when, again, as I argue, the reason for the anti-capitalist mentality that so many of them espouse is because the market does. The market is a feature. It's a social cooperative feature of God's divine and natural law. And we know progressivism at its heart is just a noxious war of atheistic propagandists who simply reject God's natural order. And the market is a feature of God's natural order. It's a benevolent feature. It's not perfect because it's driven by humans. But the idea that God established a means by which we can, with the tools given to us and over which we can have dominion, engage in a mutual system of production from scarce resources to satisfy the immense, I would argue, innumerable needs, wants, and desires to satisfy consumers, and that the rewards for such satisfaction are commensurate with the level by which producers are able to meet the needs, wants, and desires of consumers. If it's done peacefully and it's done with the correct means, with the correct instruments, like, for example, sound money or sound investment, entrepreneurship, and we eliminate those institutions that quell or destroy and vitiate those mechanisms, it's a that's why Rothbard called it a miracle. He used the term miracle to describe it. And Mises argues the same thing. It's not infallible. It's not without error because we as humans have problems with calculation. The question is, when we calculate, what should be the determinant force in calculation of economic goods and how we should individually sate those, what again he called the uneasiness that comes with human experience. Well, it should be the individual and not some distant entity or anyone else for that matter.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Good article. I could see why it's labeled as dangerous.
Dangerous on the dance floor.
You ready to hear a good story?
Yes, I am.
We're going to call and cut me off whenever, because like I said, this is going to be scattered. I still don't believe I heard this and that this was real. If you put into an AI generator, what should I make up a story for me to get tips off of this guy being me? That's tailored to him. What would it be?
Oh, wow.
It was as if he was reading off that story. This is one of the most hate the state, love Christ car rides I've ever
Oh, wow.
had in my entire life. So to set the scene, I'm not going to say his real name. We're going to call him, for the sake of sir, we're going to call him Roberto. Okay, Roberto's from Mexico. He is kind of a bigger Mexican dude. English is his second language, you could tell, but he speaks fine English. I'm going to be speaking in broken English as I'm interpreting him, and it's not to make fun of him. I just think it makes the story a little more authentic. So
Okay.
he picks me up. First thing I see is the crosses hanging from the front mirror. Okay, so I say, "Hey, oh, what's up, Roberto?" First thing I say, "Hey, Robert. Hey, Charlie. Yeah, this is for Charlie. Hey, what's up, Roberto? Oh, are you Catholic?"
He asked you, or you said that?
I asked him.
Okay.
No, I'm Christian, not Catholic. He said, I actually became Christian pretty recently. I had a miracle and my life was saved. Here we go. Here we go. Not every Uber ride starts like this.
Sure.
But I didn't know the other side of the story. I
Okay.
said, whoa, tell me all about it. What happened? He had an injury from the vaccine.
Oh,
Basically, his foot was like a bowling ball that
Charlie.
he couldn't walk on.
Uh, Albert Bourla of Pfizer said they're safe and effective. I don't know. This guy's obviously
He
making
must have
stuff
been
up.
making it up.
Right.
I knew it was just for tips.
Yeah. Well, let's
Anyways,
see if let's hear or listen on as we'll find out if he's successful in eliciting it from you.
he's got to take. He was.
Okay.
He's got to take a knee scooter around.
Oh,
Not
wow.
now, but he had to.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what happened? It's important to note, before he was Christian, his mom is Jehovah's Witness,
Hmm.
a Mexican Jehovah's Witness, which I've never heard of before. But
Yeah, I've heard of.
are
Yeah.
they, I didn't know that
They're,
was
they made inroads in among the Mexican population. Yeah.
okay. So he's telling me about how he put on all this weight. He's about to die.
Oh.
He's over 300 pounds. He said he goes, have you seen those TV shows where they get really big and then they lose the weight? He said he was that big
Holy cow.
because he couldn't move and stuff.
All right.
He says, but the miracle happened. I was in bed. I was just crying and almost like a dream that you're awake for. He hears a voice in his head saying, we're going to take care of this. This is Jesus. You're going to put all of your problems onto him and he's going to take care of your foot.
Hmm.
And he sees Jesus come into his bedroom
Okay.
and his foot deflates and he's able to walk.
Holy cow. Okay.
And he's dropped like 100 pounds and he's working out. And I said, so you couldn't walk? He goes, I was on knee scooter. I was on knee scooter. Jesus came in and I just remember crying. And he backs it up a little bit. Him and his mom are super close.
Okay.
He was talking about how his mom would pray to God that his son's sickness would come onto her, that
Oh.
she could take that on for him.
Mm-hmm.
His mom becomes sick.
Okay.
And as there's all of this, she's in Mexico. He's in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
He's in Chicago. She's in Mexico. And his mom's sick, but she's planning on coming to the States. And you know how she's getting her legally. She's doing all the stuff. She's got to do all the red tape stuff instead of just coming here like you can do.
Mm-hmm.
as she's a week away from coming to the States, she dies.
Oh no.
Just he said that he had the room all set up for her. She was going to live somewhere in the apartment. She dies. But as he's telling me this, I'm still in disbelief. So I'm sorry to hear all of this, but happy that he's Christian. And we're talking just a little bit about general Catholicism versus non-denominational Christianity.
How long was this ride?
20 minutes.
Okay.
Then he says, I'm gay.
And you said, me too.
Right. And he said, I stopped having relations with a man because I can't do that and also be Christian.
Wow. Hmm. Well, a good thing James Martin wasn't in the Uber.
Yeah, right. Maybe you had to be there, but listening to this guy tell me about the last 3 years of his life and how the government, first of all, convinced him to get this experimental poison serum and also got in the way of his mom coming to see him before she died.
Yeah.
And the thing that keeps him going. And he says it's still tough. He took on a bunch of debt because for medical reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole ride, I was thinking, there is no way this is an accident, that this is just some random Uber ride that just happened. And he might be at church.
Wow.
He might be at
Excellent.
church. He might be at church Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild conversion story. Those things happen more often than you think.
Yeah. I've never heard it like that though.
Did
I've heard of some other miracle stories, but the randomness of hearing that one, because and he was also getting into how he was also into spiritualism, where
okay.
that
The cult and stuff?
yes, and how he got out of there because
Yeah.
he was saying how that's just the demons stay with you there. That's just demonic.
Wow.
Very strong within the faith. He says, I read scripture, I praying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was so moved by the randomness of it all, but how it's not random, that I'm never going to forget that. I'm never going to forget that Uber ride. No Uber ride's going to top that. How
That's
many
great.
Ubers have you been in that you even remember?
Not too many.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very transactional. Doesn't sound like that one was transactional.
No, no,
Good to hear.
that one was different. And
Mm-hmm.
to think that it could have just been a 5 minute ride and it was 20. And I originally was going to show up to the place I was going to later,
Okay.
so I wouldn't have
Oh,
heard that.
sure.
Unbelievable.
Mm. It's good to
So
hear.
maybe you meet him.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about a town that is not so unbelievable in the right ways?
Even the Uber drivers are boring.
Yeah.
Definitely. Here it is.
Meanwhile in Oak Park.
Meanwhile, in Oak Park, the people segment, the reason you keep coming back. OP Regional Housing Center is in financial trouble. What now? The village board will meet to discuss next steps June 18. The Oak Park Regional Housing Center's financial trouble, resulting in staff's pay sometimes being delayed and the village pausing its funding for the organization, will require village trustees to navigate next steps at their June 18th meeting. The OPRHC is a nonprofit organization that offers resources to individuals seeking to locate housing and to housing providers, according to its website. Its mission, according to the website, is, quote, to achieve vibrant communities and promote intentional and stable residential integration throughout Oak Park and the region.
Now, of course, that's such a just fabricated and fiat demand that no one went to them and said, we're pining for this, correct? It's not as if this organization is meeting some open market demand. It's just that the organization is created and then it creates its reason to be.
Right. But now the village says the organization has been falling short of financial obligations and performance expectations, which it sets for each of its partner agencies. The financial issues at OPRHC aren't new either. Athena Williams, executive director of the OPRHC, said that's the result of cash flow issues, lack of village funding, and inherited financial trouble. Village officials said the OPRHC ended the fiscal year 2023 with a deficit of about $356,617.
So that's a lot of money. What? How is this thing still up?
How are you $350K in the hole in 1 year?
And what are the funding
What are you
mechanisms for this
spending
other
it
than
on?
just shaking down village board members for allocations?
Okay, listen to this. It gets better. Williams said that number is an operating loss, not all deficit. She said the village's shortfall in funding the housing center is almost $230,000, and the OPRHC's remaining deficit is about $127,000.
Wait, that's $357,000.
Yeah, but she's saying the housing, or she's saying the village's shortfall in funding, so the village owes them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead.
The OPRHC is still working to complete its 2023 audit 6 months ago.
We're going to get to it. Don't worry.
If the village board decides at its June 18th board meeting to stop or limit funding for the OPRHC, Williams said she'll have to close the Live in Oak Park program, which helps foster residential racial integration in the village.
As if no one, why would that need to be done by some exogenous institution?
But what led to this point?
Ah.
Timeline of events. On August 4th, 2023, village staff discovered the housing center had an, quote, inactive status with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for its West Cook home ownership program, according to village officials. This prompted village staff to meet with OPRHC staff to discuss compliance. Funds, including from the village's general funds and community development block grant programs, were paused.
So basically, people are just embezzling from this whole thing.
Yeah,
these are just ghost jobs that they're shrouding in this whole nonprofit agency getting funds from the county, the state, and the feds.
On August 23rd, a financial monitoring of the OPRHC took place. Village staff discovered that OPRHC staff had not been paid for multiple pay periods beginning in March 2023.
Well, somebody's getting paid, right?
The staff were not paid for 3 consecutive pay periods, a total of 7 weeks, until August 2023, according to officials. OPRHC staff at this time were also awaiting payment for July and August. Those wages were later confirmed as received. Williams told Wednesday Journal money from funders was coming in late due to funders' internal issues. She said some staff told her they were willing to wait for their checks, but then 2 staff members told HUD, Housing and Urban Development, about the delayed payments. She said that's when HUD inactivated the OPRHC status to check its financial procedures. Determining them to be okay, Williams said. HUD did not revoke the Opura HC certification altogether, she said.
We just sort of revoked it.
4 Opura HC staff members left around this time, she
Oh
said.
shit. The people.
Yeah, they didn't want to work for free for the
Yeah.
Opura HC. Village staff also discovered the OPR HC's Housing Action Illinois funding grant agreement was terminated. HUD reinstated the OPR HC on October 10, 2023 for a probationary period to end April 10, 2024. That probationary period has since been extended to October 10, 2024.
On what grounds?
In November 2023, Kolnicki, Peterson, and Worth conducted a performance review of the OPR HC. It was inconclusive, according to village officials, due to a lack of financial documentation from the OPR HC.
Wait. This sounds like a Pentagon audit. We're gonna have the Pentagon audit itself.
We didn't have the financial documents. This is
Yeah.
incredible.
Can you show me some ledgers, some documentation, some receipts of payment, payroll, stuff of that nature? Where are the funds and outlays going? We don't have any of that. Well, I guess it's inconclusive then.
The housing center was given 7 extensions to provide the documentation, village officials state. In
All
January,
right, we'll come back. We'll come back for all the paperwork. Okay, we're here.
7 extensions.
We still don't have it. We're here again. No, we still don't have it.
7 extensions. Are these people adults?
Oh, come on.
In January 2024, the OPR HC contested the review and requested a 45-day extension to submit documents. The village denied this request, asking the OPR HC to focus on, quote, strengthening the organization's operations and financial oversight.
You should start with establishing it before strengthening it. It seems like they have no financial documentation or oversight. Go ahead.
Oh, this is where it gets really good. Williams told Wednesday Journal that KPW's review included the week of Thanksgiving in 2023. The OPR HC was closed for a few days, and when they came back, half of the staff had COVID-19, she said, contributing to the inconclusive review. When KPW asked for payroll documents for every staff member, Williams said she wasn't done with the budget revisions after some staff had left.
Well, that should make your job easier. When are you going to, I mean, how many times of the 7 when they requested or came back for the extensions, how many people had COVID
How do you
then?
live in Oak Park with a straight face, dude? How do you keep a straight face? I know everyone says the same thing about Chicago. This is different. You got the money. There's no like big city feel. Everything's ruined. This is I could see you living there jokingly. Like we could do it to be closer to and make the Meanwhile in Oak Park segment better. I don't know how you can live there with a straight face. Someone's gonna come up to me with a good answer saying, and I hate how beautiful Oak Park is, and that's what they're gonna say. They're gonna say the town's so beautiful, it's gorgeous, which it actually is, which I hate to admit because they've completely ruined it. And Satan, he loves to invert, and he's inverted the town of Oak Park.
Yes.
And it is so backwards, and the town can be so lively and energetic, and now it's just a drain. It's like my shower drain. I'm just gonna call my shower drain is just called Oak Park now.
Dirty water.
What a waste.
Yeah.
What a waste. Seriously.
How can you have any integrity and be what is this one? Athena Williams?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you keep working in a job where you know you're just siphoning off people's contributions, forced and coercive contributions for the most part, or even if they're charitably given? That's your sustenance, and you can't even run that correctly. I mean, you should be working your ass off just to keep the ploy going, right? But you can't even do that. You can't even meet the minimum requirements to do that, to have the graft continue. It's like a mobster who's running a brothel, and the brothel just keeps giving without any kind of oversight, right? And when one of the upper ranking monsters said, hey, there's a whole segment of there's a group of whores that are working night and day and they're complaining. And you're supposed to give them their pay, and you're like, I don't know. So then they get suspicious, but they just keep letting it go, and you can't even keep up with that. You can't just manage that. Anyway, there's no profit or loss system here, obviously.
Dan Yopchik, the village's chief communications officer, which is a tough job, told Wednesday Journal the village did not give KPW a certain time frame in which to complete the review, but he wrote, quote, there were established goals to have the review completed before the end of 2023 and for the village board to review the report and consider next steps regarding funding in the fiscal year. In February 2024, village manager Kevin Jackson asked the OPRHC for a corrective action plan. Williams submitted one.
It was written in crayon.
This plan outlined areas of improvement for the OPRHC, including restructuring financial procedures, ensuring staff are paid wages on time, working on the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, housing study recommendations, and reassessing racial integration plans. Village staff said they have met twice with Williams and Housing Center board members to address concerns since then. In April 2024, the MMC presented a housing study plan to the village board. The plan outlines challenges facing the OPRHC and suggested additional monitoring of all programs. Like a babysitter? The OPRHC has applied
Cut the cord, man.
The OPRHC has also applied for village funding from the Affordable Housing Fund during a 2023 request for proposals. These applications have been paused. 2 previous requests from the OPRHC were also rejected. OPRHC response.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Williams said the cash flow issue started years ago. During COVID-19, the OPRHC received reimbursable government grants that helped keep the programs afloat. But as the pandemic started to die down, private funders the OPRHC was relying on changed their funding direction, Williams said, to aid those experiencing homelessness. Live in Oak Park does not focus on individuals experiencing homelessness. The program costs on average about $750,000 per year to run, Williams said.
I'm still not clear as to what it's doing. Even if the goal is to increase racial integration of Oak Park, how does it actually do that for $750,000 a month? Does it recruit Black people from Austin and get them set up in apartments? Okay, maybe, but it's not even clear what they're actually doing with the funds.
Without Oak Park's allocated funds, which aren't enough alone to cover the cost, it would have to be shut down. And other private funders believe Oak Park should be the one to fund it, Williams said. Quote, with the distraction of no funding for a year, with the distraction of the funding processes, we need developmental time, Williams said. And the only way we can do that is with a different type of partnership with the village. Williams said when she became the agency's executive director in September 2019, she inherited a financial structure at the OPRHC that wasn't working. She said she's been trying to fix it and play catch up since she started.
5 years.
5 years ago. Ever since I've been the executive director, every year there has been an issue with the village to pause funding, and it slows down our progress, Williams said.
Progress on what?
HUD deactivating OPRHC's status did not necessarily need to affect village funding, Williams said, but their contract states that if the OPRHC is not in compliance with HUD, the village can pause funding, and it did. When that funding ceased, she said she had to pay staff salaries from other funds. The agency also took out lines of credit to perform basic operations, funds that have to be paid back. Another public misconception, Williams said, is that there was a, quote, ghost payroll at the OPRHC. This refers to allegations of payments for staff members who don't exist and that others pocket. Williams said the village had missed 2 payroll identification numbers, leading to that misconception.
So wait, is it a misconception or is it actually a ghost payroll? Because that's exactly what a ghost payroll would function like. Or as.
Yapchik said the village was initially unable to identify two individuals on the payroll records, but later did.
That was just to cover their own ass.
The OPR
Be sure of that.
the OPR HC's next performance review from HUD will happen in July. This is an annual process, Williams said. To prepare, Williams said she's working to make sure the files, staff training, and data management system are all up to date. The village board was supposed to discuss next steps with the OPRHE's funding at its June 4th board meeting. Trustees voted to postpone that discussion as the June 4th meeting lasted almost 5 hours prior to reaching that agenda topic. A 5-hour meeting? Williams said she wants to sit down with the village staff, talk about each item, and work through it together. Although Williams alleged they have not been willing to do so, Yapchik wrote that, quote, the village has not denied the housing center an opportunity to meet and discuss concerns regarding their finances or agreement scope and has always made staff available to discuss any concerns. In response to village concerns, Williams also wrote, quote, through the past 10 months, this process came across very systemically oppressive to me as an individual,
Oh God.
to the OPRHC board of directors and staff, and to the clients who seek to gain entry into the village of Oak Park, causing much harm, which I believe is not the intent of the village staff and its board of trustees.
But I'm just going to insinuate that accusation nonetheless.
Here we go. Williams told Wednesday Journal she feels singled out as a Black female leader. She said she believes if she was someone else, the village's approach would have been different.
Oh,
This one is rich. This one is
was rich because she's shown not the slightest modicum of competence in doing any sort of job whatsoever. And the job itself, as I alluded to earlier, is a phantom job with an organization that's really a phantom organization. It's a front. It's an embezzlement front. And she can't even run that. And then she's got to go ahead and say, I mean, just truly, how insulting is that to any Black person running their own private business?
Yes. Yes. Quote, the village followed established protocol and procedure in ensuring policy compliance and that the contractual terms set forth in the housing center agreement were met. Yapchik wrote in response, the process is the same for all organizations. What could the village do? According to village staff, there are 4 possibilities for how the village board could respond to the financial trouble facing the OPRHC. At the June 18th meeting, trustees could decide to adopt one of these options. All right, here are the 4 doors. Door number 1, pause funding of the OPRHC until the organization is fully reinstated by HUD. How are you? I don't understand. How are you not fully reinstated? How are you partially reinstated?
Just semantics while the grift goes on.
Door 2, fund the OPRHC at a lesser amount than the traditional $300,000 annually and put the organization on probation.
Yeah.
Number 3, fund the OPRHC at the traditional $300,000 with no accountability measures.
That's the one that she's keeping her fingers crossed on, right?
Door number 4, fund the OPRHC's request for the CDBG program year 2022, fiscal year 2023 agreement, and $400,000 for fiscal year 2024.
They obviously deserve more money.
With time and funding, the OPRHC intends to increase staff capacity, improve the integration program, increase rental and home ownership opportunities, increase housing inventory, and increase support for, quote, resident advocacy, according to a presentation.
All of that is fantasy. It's just made up.
Without funding, the Live in Oak Park program will have to be shut down immediately.
And no one will be disaffected.
And Oak Park will go on. With some funding, but not all the OPRHC is asking for, the program would still likely have to be shut down within 2024.
I swear, Charlie. Isn't this perfect that we just had the earlier segment on the show was all about market.
I'm just thinking, if I'm an
Forces.
entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. Let's say we raise money.
Uh-huh.
Imagine me saying to an investor, hey, if we don't get this investment, we are not going to survive. But if you do give us some investment, we're still
not going to be able to
most
function.
likely won't make it out of the year.
Only in socialism, Charlie. Only in socialism.
Yeah, this is anyone who calls this a capitalist society is blue pilled.
They'll blame capitalism.
Overdosed on blue pills right now.
They'll find a way. Athena's going to find a way to blame capitalism somehow, but
it is vital people don't take racial integration work for granted. Williams said, hey, I'm taking it for granted. I'm taking it for granted.
I'm taking it for granted.
Go out on a limb here and say that if a program has to shut down immediately, but with some funding, it still will need to get shut down. I think that it's not
and accomplish nothing either way.
Yeah. It is vital people don't take racial integration work for granted, Williams said. Some think Oak Park has already achieved what it needs to do, but that's not true, she said. Quote, the integration work has helped to increase the overall value of the community, she said. This work is intentional. We have to continue to do this work to make this difference. If Oak Park pulls its funding entirely, Williams said that could risk the OPRHC's reputation with other funders too. The power dynamic between the village and the OPRHC has to change, she said. Yapchik also told Wednesday Journal, quote, the village of Oak Park continues to support the legacy of the Oak Park Regional Housing Center and has remained focused on collaborating with housing center staff throughout the process in order to firmly establish and foster an open line of communication.
God.
This includes being readily available to discuss issues outside of regular business hours. There are no regular business hours.
They don't do business.
This is not a regular business.
There's a fruit fly in here. It's bothering me. What a story. Only in Oak Park, Charlie.
This one's getting a tweet.
That's great. Hurry up and fund a program an institution that doesn't seem to have any functionality, needs more funding than it's currently funded at, so that it can accomplish nothing in the future.
I wonder if they decided at the June 18th meeting.
Oh, man. That was just last night.
Is this the same article?
No.
Trustees did not vote Tuesday night.
A lack of corrective action.
It's basically the same article. But now the Live in Oak Park program will likely be shut down.
Oh, Skaman. It says Skaman, however, responded angrily to who? About what?
That she said accused the village board and village staff of unprofessional behavior while addressing issues with the housing center, which makes sense. She did call them out. Yeah, we don't have a quote, we don't have a healthy partnership, Trustee Lucia Robinson said.
No kidding.
Skaman said she believes the housing center may be threatened due to, quote, poor management. Trustee Susan Buchanan also listed several instances of late financial reports from the housing center, calling it mind-blowing that Williams said she didn't recall all of them. Village trustees and housing center officials both expressed desires to find a path forward together.
Oh, the path forward.
She needed to I can't believe she took out lines of credit.
Oh my God. That's crazy. What a story.
That one's gonna tweet.
Brilliant.
The state cut the grocery tax. How does that affect Oak Park? The village could stand to lose about $1 million in revenue per year.
Damn, some of that could go to bailing out the housing center.
Now that Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's $53.1 billion budget for 2025 has eliminated the state grocery tax, Oak Park stands to lose about $1 million in revenue per year.
Of course, I was looking at a chart of state budgets over the past 20 or 30 years. In the course of like 4 years, the state budget's up 18% in terms of expenditure. It's just a massive, massive increase since 2020 even.
Revenue from the 1% state grocery tax was distributed to local municipalities. The cut takes effect January 1st, 2026. Over the last 4 years, Oak Park has made about $4.3 million in revenue from the state grocery tax, according to Arlene Pedraza, the village's management analyst.
You know what's wild about this? Speaking about the inefficiencies of government, why would the state collect a grocery tax and then distribute the tax to the municipality? Why wouldn't the state just authorize the municipality through its taxing agency to do it? Why? Of course, you need a middleman because you need to employ some Democratic grifter in the party in Springfield.
That's why.
Right?
Yeah. That's the democracy versus monarchy argument in a nutshell.
Of course.
Because with democracy, everyone thinks they're important now.
Well, you could still have a huge bureaucracy under a monarchy, but it wouldn't be as big, I suppose. And it wouldn't have the veneer of having the support of the people. True.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. It's a lot harder to say this is extremely dangerous to our democracy or this is extremely dangerous to the reign of King Charles.
Yeah, everyone knows who to blame in a monarchy. That's right.
However, villages, cities, and towns have options to cover lost funds. According to the state, municipalities can create their own grocery tax up to 1%. Those with home rule authority or municipalities with more than 25,000 residents can pass their own grocery tax without state oversight. Oak Park does have home rule status as a municipality with about 52,000 residents. But Donna Gaydon, Oak Park's interim chief financial officer, said they are not planning to raise taxes to make up for the lost revenue. Meanwhile, in Forest Park, the amount of revenue lost is smaller, but still a blow to a much smaller community. It's, quote, "It's still not great that this has been eliminated because it's going to put the burden on the municipalities," said Maria Maxim, Forest Park's commissioner of accounts and finance. Maxim added that she expects Forest Park to implement its own local tax, especially with the arrival of a new grocery store. And Aldi is expected to open later this year in the former Bed Bath & Beyond building at 215 South Harlem Avenue. This is on the way to Fenwick. So when Pritzker proposed eliminating the grocery tax in February, Forest Park officials were disappointed, Maxim added. But Gaydon said she wasn't surprised. Quote, "Once something is passed through legislation, the local municipalities, we just have to adjust," Gaydon said. "We will try to fight what we can and convince them to not do it, but we will adjust and move forward." Gaydon said she anticipates modifying the village's budget and looking for ways to reduce spending, but didn't know where yet. However, the fiscal year 2024 budget for Oak Park had a lot of one-time expenditures, she said, that would not necessarily affect the 2025 budget. Quote, "At this time, we will look at additional grants coming in, additional funding from other sources without raising taxes," Gaydon said. Illinois was one of 13 states that taxed grocery sales. Pritzker proposed eliminating the grocery tax to save families money. Dropping the 1% tax saves Illinois shoppers $1 for every $100 of groceries. For everyone, for all the mathletes at home.
Yeah,
Quote,
while inflation's up 25%.
Yeah, I don't think there's any benefit to getting rid of it, Maxim said. It's obviously going to save people who grocery shop, which is everybody, money. But the amount
Is that not a benefit?
But the amount she added is insignificant.
Well, not if you're spending $1,000 every month.
It tends to have a smaller impact on a person buying $100 worth of groceries than it does on a municipality as a whole. That's losing out on a significant chunk of money that they use for all kinds of different things.
Oh,
Maxim said.
I love that.
Like OPRHC.
Yeah, exactly. That's government. We use your money. We rob you of your money and we use it in quote for all kinds of different things, as opposed to you who could be using your money for all kinds of different things you elect.
Oak Park will likely approve its fiscal year 2025 budget around December of this year. Pedraza said they couldn't say yet whether the loss of the state grocery tax revenue would result in a deficit for the village.
That was.
Meanwhile in Oak Park.
Entertaining one.
It fit well with the Mises article.
It does. It does. And also in it's a further condemnation. You might say, well, democracies don't work that type of large scale. Well, they obviously don't work in the smallest
It's
scale
all
in these
large
little
scale.
communities and villages.
It's all large scale.
Yes.
There is no small scale. Illinois' $53 billion budget
That's right.
that funds Oak Park.
And still underfunds pensions, state employee pensions. Public workers' pensions are still the worst funded in the country. And they're spending $53 billion just this year. Insanity. Well, here's to living in Illinois. Do you ever get infuriated by all those when you're watching a White Sox game or you're watching just any kind of TV, or even, you might be viewing a YouTube video and there's these stupid like anti-drug driving or buckle your seatbelt ads that Illinois puts out, or Illinois tourism ads? Come on, man. First of all, the ads aren't done well. They of course farmed it out to some ad agency where you have all these cronies within government, and no one's paid attention to these ads other than, I guess, the side benefit is we could just continue to ridicule the state for its gross incompetence. Isn't that wild that you have a system of state government that spends enormous sums of money on ads to tell you not to buckle your seatbelt and not drive drunk, but then they benefit from when you drive drunk and they pull you over because you're not wearing a seatbelt? What a system. Correct? What a system.
Yeah, I need a shower.
All right, Charlie. Well, this was fun.
Yeah. Go follow our sponsor.
Yes, please buy stuff from Tridentine Brewing.
And let's pray for our friend Roberto. And
AKA Roberto, yeah.
say a prayer for everyone living in Oak Park.
Yep. I don't know whether to pray for their fortitude or wisdom, knowledge to get the hell out of there. All of the above.
I don't know. All right, everyone. Goodbye.
Well, we could be white pilled on a number of things, but we could certainly be black pilled on Oak Park. Yeah? Seems logical to me.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Until
everyone.
next time, people.
See ya.
Peace.